Okay, welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. Who's starting to feel jet lagged right about now? Is that setting in? Yeah? Okay, I see quite a few hands. Any food comas? Eaten too much? Too many cookies? Okay, yeah, I'm right there with you. Well, don't worry. I need you to listen to me, though, because I'm telling you why you don't need to worry about your food comas and jet lag, because our next lightning talks are going to breathe new energy into you. These speakers that you're about to see were chosen for their compelling, impactful stories of change in their communities. At the heart of these lightning talks are young people, their entrepreneurship, and their innovation. To open the session, please welcome on stage a champion of youth and youth voices at the World Bank and the world over, Axel van Trotsenburg, the World Bank Managing Director of Operations.
Thank you. First, welcome to the bank, and hopefully many are suffering of jet lag. And I hope that you have a great time. I am also happy that we have chosen this topic on urbanization, as this is one of the key topics. And I just wanted to give you that a little bit in perspective, and then feed this back to what we are doing at the bank. If you look at urbanization, this has been a global phenomenon since the Industrial Revolution. And this started, of course, mainly first in the industrialized world, but this has caught on in the world, and now since about 10, 15 years, more than 50% of the world population is living in cities. And this trend is only going to continue, and it's getting stronger. So by 2050, 60% of the developing world will be living in urban cities. And in the developed world, it will be 85%. So this poses very specific challenges. And to make it more challenges for you, you have to know that there are now 1.8 billion people are young people between 10 and 24 years. 60% of the African population is below 25 years. And they will be ending up mainly in cities. And so what does that mean? It means to capture urbanization as an opportunity and as a source of growth and a future for you. And this is the big challenge. Well done. It will provide the opportunities for a lot of young people to find new opportunities and to build a future. Badly done, it will spell misery. And I think we should not forget that in many developing countries, they have these stark choices between cities that have no slums and cities that are inundated by slums, pollution, exclusion, and no opportunity. So this you need to understand, and that has to be understood in a context that in the next 10 years, we in the world have to create at least 600 million jobs, mainly for young people. So therefore, this type of conferences get a specific meaning, namely how you think about urbanization as this opportunity, because it will have to meet certain tests. You need to think about sustainability. You need to think about inclusion. And you need to find efficient solutions. And this has to be contrasted that if you don't manage this well, you have exclusion, you have inequalities, and you don't have jobs. So when you have this kind of conferences, look at the possibilities of projects, but always contrast this if you are not using your brain power, what could happen to all around you and others? So I think this is what I'm always saying also in the World Bank. You can go on, do your project, and feel that you feel good about this. But I don't think that these days this is enough. What you need to think is you need to find solutions that are relevant, innovative, and that you can deliver. And so my appeal to you is that when we do this kind of conferences, it's great to socialize, but challenge yourself and network and see how you can bring ideas from Asia to Africa, from Africa to Latin America or Eastern Europe, and how you can think differently. We have enough standard thinking, but the challenges we have, and what I laid out, that this urbanization trend will continue. And that, however, that we have also enormous challenges in terms of employment, of climate change, of inequalities, and lack of opportunities for many young people. So we need to see how we can bring these solutions together and bring more inclusive approaches to this. So I would certainly encourage you to think about this from the small to the big and back. And there is no perfect solution, but what I would say and my recommendation be, and that I say to a lot of colleagues, be bold. Be very bold. Because even with that boldness, you may still not be able to solve all the problems. But you need to give this kind of things a fighting chance. Therefore, the World Bank is very happy to sponsor this type of events, because in the end, it will be you that will shape the future of this world. It will be you, through initiatives like this, will hopefully get some encouragement to just do it, do the right thing, dare to do a project that may also fail, but at least you tried. And so use these events to really debate, to see what you can do, and keep in mind that together we will have to meet this challenge. And I think, being quite optimistic, you have the potential, you have the energy, and use it. And what the bank would like to do is only to encourage you that. And I wish you a lot of success in the discussions, but not only here, but take it back home and do the projects you believe in. We believe in you, and please succeed. Thank you very much.
Okay, on that strong note, we launch into our first lightning talk of the afternoon. Our first lightning talk speaker is Anurag Agarwal. Anurag has over 20 years of wide and varied experience in operating and advisory and investing roles. He's been a social entrepreneur, investment banker, professor, private equity investor, you name it. He has it all under his belt. He's also the co-founder of Janajal, which translates from Hindi to water for the people. It is a name that holds deep meaning and deep value in the communities that the organization serves. Janajal is a social enterprise impact venture focused on bringing clean drinking water to millions of lower-income people in India and Southeast Asia. The organization has dispensed over 200 million liters of water. Picture what that looks like, without using any plastic containers. Since its launch, through their proprietary clean drinking water ATM machines that are being installed over the country, and they offer water at 10% the cost of bottled water. Without further ado, let's welcome Anurag to the stage.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, speakers, delegates, and our kind hosts at the World Bank. My name is Anurag, and I was asked this afternoon as the co-founder of Janajal to share with you a story about how my brother, Parag, and I with the use of social entrepreneurship and innovation, very topical for the day, are trying to solve one of the biggest problems in the world. We're also trying to solve this problem in one of the biggest markets of the world, which is India. We can all agree today that safe water is the world's next big problem. And that is really the problem that we've decided to try and solve. This is how majority of people in India get access to their safe water. I think we can all agree this is not very safe. But for them, water is life. So every day when these tankers pull up in a neighborhood or in a slum or in rural parts of India, this is what happens. And this isn't a coincidence, but you will notice there's a lot of women in this picture. Women are tasked, for no good reason, to be responsible for bringing water, which is very heavy, from this tanker back to their homes. For the few that can actually afford it, there is another option. It looks like this. Now, there's a few small problems with this solution. The biggest being 6.5 billion bottles of plastic. I don't know if you know this, but India is the world's largest market for bottled water already. 6.5 billion liters of water get consumed every single year in the bottled form. They call it packaged water. I call it plastic water. Now, the other problem is, this is growing at 22% year over year. India has the world's largest and fastest growing middle class of 400 million people. Imagine if these 400 million people can start affording this. As much as I love all the Western countries and I love to travel to Europe and to Scandinavia, and I'm so inspired by their work in conservation, if these 400 million people start consuming this, I don't think what the rest of the Western world is going to do is going to matter much. And sadly, we may have to kiss our oceans goodbye. So with that sort of as a backdrop, here is what we realized the problem was. 80% of the country does not have access to safe drinking water. That's 800 million people, in case you're doing the math. 95% of the people today are consuming unpackaged water. So that's bad news and good news. It's good news because they're not using plastic. It's bad news because the unpackaged water is unsafe. So that sort of led us to the final piece of this, which is on the right-hand side of the slide, where we wanted to build a sustainable social enterprise. And for that, we wanted to build a business. We are not afraid to go out and tell people, this is a for-profit social enterprise that is 100% focused on impact, but it needs to be sustainable. So when you look at this, there's actually profitability for once in being sustainable. The packaged water, or the plastic water side of things, is a $3 billion a year market. Interestingly, if it represents only 5% of the total market for water, that tells you that the unpackaged side of the market is 20 times bigger. So if you went to a business school, or you spoke to someone on Wall Street, or you spoke to any investor, they should be a lot more excited, 20 times more excited, that you're actually addressing a bigger market. We also have a roadmap. So I'm sure everybody in this room is very familiar with these goals that we have set for ourselves as a community for 2030. SDG 6 clearly is the sweet spot of where we live. Universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water for all by 2030. However, when we looked at this, Parag and I, we noticed number 11. And we read number 11 and said, making cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. So we asked ourselves a very simple question. Can a smart city exist without safe water for all? And we firmly believe that the answer is no. So what we decided to do was we decided to address that problem. And we created a platform that serves that 80% and serves them without using plastic. we created a suite of products using our own R&D and innovation that basically serve what we call the home-to-work coverage model. I'll walk you through these quickly. On the left, you see what we call a water ATM. This is a community-level solution, 15,000 liters a day. It can serve 5,000 to 7,000 people, which is a small community, train stations, bus stops, slum areas, public areas. What's interesting is we purify, cool, and dispense the water at the point of consumption. So there is no contamination in the water that comes out. We wanted to solve the weight problem with water. We wanted to make water mobile. So inspired by Uber and the shared economy of the world, we created our own. We bought a chassis. We innovated and developed an electric vehicle that we call WOW, Water on Wheels. It's kind of obvious. It has 500 liters of a tank capacity, and the WOW can be summoned on an app, and it brings safe water home. So now we've made water mobile, and we've solved the problem for all those women, hopefully, that are now having to queue up, not in front of a tanker, but just use their phones. And 600 million people in India have smartphones. And finally, we developed an indoor solution called the Oiya. Oiya in Japanese is safe water. It means safe water. And this is really our way of addressing classrooms, hospitals, indoor environments where we can actually bring safe water again to 500 to 700 people or up to 1,000 people a day. We are very big believers in technology, and we decided to create a smart and scalable platform. Using existing technologies like IoT, we went out and developed, with over 2 years worth of work done by our research teams, our own proprietary IoT-based controller system that basically makes all our products smart. From diagnostics to measurements to full integration with digital wallets, we can now ensure that the water we are dispensing is safe and the water we are dispensing is measured. Our mantra, quite simply, is, we call it the AAA. Water has to be affordable, available, and accessible. And we use technology as a way to drive that. Is it working? I am so proud to share that after 3 years of a lot of hard work by a lot of people, we have over 100 people that work on this company every day in India, we've been able to achieve some milestones. The first, not insignificant one, is revenues. To be sustainable, you have to be able to show that you are attractive for investment. And we're doing that by not only having revenues, but by growing 300% year over year. We have a footprint. Over 700 water ATMs and systems installed all over the country. We have a strong pipeline of systems, and we have impact. We have reached over 90 million people in the last 3 years, and we have measured over 11 million single-use plastic bottles that we were able to eliminate from being used because of our solution. 11 million. Our goal, however, is to get to 1 billion. And the math is easy. If 1,000 systems do 1,000 liters every single day, that's 1 billion liters, which is 15% of the bottled water market already. And 1 billion liters, in case you are wondering, I've done the math, can serve 1.3 million people annually. Still a very small portion of what that country needs, but a huge step forward in what we are trying to achieve. And then finally, reach. We are in 5 states of the country, and our goal is to go global. This is a global audience, and we would love to find a way to bring these solutions to Africa and Southeast Asia, where we know there's a lot of need and demand. It's good to be noticed, and one of the things we are most proud of is how, for a social enterprise, which normally gets more aligned with non-profit ventures, we actually oftentimes find ourselves in the company of giants. I'm sure most people in this room had never heard about Janajal before today. Have you heard about IBM? Nike? Hyundai? So imagine waking up one morning and seeing this in the news, where your little company is put on the same platform as these large global giants, and what that tells us is what we're doing not only matters, but it actually is scalable, and we set ourselves the goals of actually not just belonging here because of the work we do, but because of our size. Awards, they mean things for some, but our awards are really on the left-hand side of this slide. What you see here is the people we actually serve. These are our consumers. This is the community we're serving. These are the people who come every single day to our water ATMs, and they claim that this is the best beverage they've ever had. So these are not people who have access to many other things. So for them, cold, safe water is, and I quote, tasty. So what we're really proud of is not what's on this side of the page. What we're really proud of is this, because this eventually gets to this. And after today, hopefully, I'll put the World Bank Youth Summit on there. So what does this mean? What this really means is it is possible to use social enterprise. It is possible to use technology. It is possible to innovate. It is possible to go out and compete with other for-profit businesses. It is okay to make return for your stakeholders. It is okay to create value for all stakeholders. And if you do it, like we are, hopefully you will achieve more than just financial return for the people concerned. So we are creating water entrepreneurs. We're creating jobs. We're empowering women. We've eliminated the use of plastic. We're building infrastructure that the government is not going to build. So we believe in public-private partnerships. Water is health. Without water, there is no health. We're affecting the health of people. And we are taking a very systematic and deliberate triple bottom line approach to what we are building. So in conclusion, what I will say is every smart city in the world needs safe water. And it does not just need safe water, it can actually now have safe water. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anurag. That was a lot of challenges covered in 10 minutes and a lot of solutions. Our next speaker is Winnie Chepkemoi Mutai. Her passion for fostering women's leadership in Africa led Winnie to participate in a 6-month pilot of the Commonwealth Women's Mentorship Scheme. She has also been a delegate to the East African Youth Summit. She was awarded a full scholarship for her master's in research and public policy at Kenya's Egerton University, where her thesis focused on free maternal health care policy. We thank our collaborators, Rotary International, for making Winnie's presence here today a possibility. Let's welcome her on stage.
Good afternoon to everyone. So I think this theme or the session on smart cities, I'm going to reflect on my personal journey, and the inspiration is that even as we leave this conference room and as we go back home, the idea is how do we individually lead changes in terms of creating a smart city. And the change might be small to you, but I don't know how do we measure a change in terms of how small it is or big it is. But for me, my thought would be how do we go back and using our values and ecosystems and thinking, how do we go and create a change in terms of we might not build a resilient city now, but how are you part of building it? So my presentation would focus on my journey, and the reason why I called it my journey, I wanted it to make it more personal so that as you go back home and as we leave this place, we go and personalize our own journey and own the space that there is so much gap and there is so much to be done, but how can you individually be part of the journey? So I'm going to take you through the lens of my career in public policy with a focus on human development, and then the impact of Rotary journey and the future in smart cities. Now, I'm going to start with a very interesting thought line. So imagine yourself probably imagine yourself as a minister in a particular country, and you've been given limited and not unlimited amount of money to be part of creating a smart city. So I want you to imagine yourself in that situation, and let's say this particular part is maybe World Bank, since we are here, is giving you an unlimited amount, and all they are asking is create for them a system in which you're going to build a smart city resilient. And my question would be, do you think you will be ready at the end of this conference to create a system in place, and whether it's thinking or processes that can build that smart city resilient? And my thought line and what I wanted to lead you into this kind of idea is I wanted us to think of 3 things as I go through my presentation quickly, and I want you to think of what is the role of collaboration in terms of creating these resilient cities, what is the role of design thinking, number 2, and lastly, what is the role of values? And the values are whichever society you come from, how do we build trust as a value in terms of creating this particular city? So recently, when I was at the Commonwealth Heads Ministerial meeting, I was able to attend a global summit, and I remember the late Kofi Annan mentioned a very interesting quote, you're never too young to lead, and you're never too old to learn. So I called on the young generation to put in remarkable energy, insight, and passion in the service. The path is yours to construct and pursue. And so I feel like it is so timely being here, particularly because it enables us to see that we are young leaders, and you're never too young to lead. You just need to be a bit bold within yourself. So a basic introduction, my family background, and I come from a family where we are small and neat. So I have a twin sister, and then I have a younger brother. And the reason why I would share this journey is when I was preparing to come here to talk, my dad is a lecturer and he teaches urban planning. But I've grown in a family where I didn't understand urban planning very well, despite my dad being an urban planner lecturer. And so my sister went on, my twin sister, and took a career path in urban planning. And so when I was piecing down the idea of smart cities, it has taken me around 26 years now to sit with them and understand what smart city is. And the reason why my family background was important is for me to tell you that as much as we sit in this room and share smart cities, you need to go back to your community and ask them, how do they understand smart cities? Because it's a very huge concept. And I'm sure when you sent in your application, you had to Google. I'm sure a majority of you did. Or you went through a YouTube video to tell you what smart city is and what it entails and how you can piece it together. And so my first thought line would be, as you go back home, try and see how would you describe smart city in your own village or in your own community. And then try and come up with what I would call a system or a way of building the concept of smart city. And you will see that pieces by pieces, everyone within the community has a role to play. And so it needs to challenge us. Can we go back home and redefine smart cities in our communities? And in my education, in my studies in Masters in Public Policy, what it has taught me is we really don't have the environment and especially the right policies to construct the right environment for smart cities. And so my idea would be, how do we push leaders, especially we young leaders, how do we go back home and push our governments, and whether it's them to collaborate or it's us as startups, how do we push the idea and the agenda to create a right environment for building smart cities? And that's a very integral part, because we can only do as much as starting a conversation, but we cannot do it alone. We need the support of our government. So you need to go back and ask yourself, how do you push your government in such a way that they would see there is value that you're adding into the table? So my third point would be my career in development and the passion on human development. And when I speak on human development, I want to really speak about how do we create an enabling environment where people are able to earn income and lead a very sustainable life, yet in a way support building of resilient cities. And that's a big challenge, especially maybe from us who come from Africa. We're still struggling with issues of affordability and access and quality in terms of healthcare, in terms of education. And majority of you would agree that I'm sure half of this can get sick now and go and access a hospital somewhere else. But the challenge is, and I remember we were having the ICPD conference just recently, and there was a lot of conversation on open data, and that was very interesting. And somebody mentioned a very particular point. We have what we call geospatial engineers, and what they do is they survey the environment and assess the distance. So the challenge has been, how do you combine the data that these geospatial people or maybe professions provide in terms of access to a hospital, because that is important. You can build a hospital somewhere, but the distance is inaccessible. So we are living in a world where we need a lot of collaborations, not just outside, but within professions. And so that's very important as you build this resilient city, is how do we build trust in that open data system? And not only trust, and how do we build sustainable trust? And especially when I look at the Sustainable Development Goals that my predecessor just mentioned here, we are looking at a phenomenon, what I would call the art of balance. We are trying to balance development in terms of healthcare, education, and every aspect. And so the challenge becomes, how do we ensure we have sustainable balance between, in terms of ensuring there's access to education, in terms of ensuring there's access to healthcare? Because a smart city, basically how I look at it, is a product of achievement of all the Sustainable Development Goals, if you look carefully to it. So you need to ask yourself, how do I become part of that art of balance? And my lastly would be my leadership in Rotary journey, and that's why when I think about collaboration, and it's very important, and Rotary is here. So majority of you, by show of hands, how many of you have heard about Rotary? Wow, pretty big number, that's good. So how many of you have thought of joining the club?
Actually a member?
Yeah, the number goes down, So I'm not here to sell Rotary, but I'm here to sell to you the idea of service. Because you can only live a good life when you offer service to your community, because there has to be something greater than you, and that's service. And so for me, it might not be Rotary, but there has to be a club or an institution that just beside your normal work of going to work 8 to 5, where do you offer service? And so Rotary comes in board, and it's very timely because Rotary is based across all globe. And the thing about Rotary, it teaches you about service. And so the fact that they are present in all countries, but the fact that they are present locally means there's an impact that Rotary creates. And for sure, if I asked many of you, how would you define your success in terms of life, in terms of impact? And I think for majority of you, impact would be what you give back to your community in terms of service, and that gives fulfillment besides driving your cars. And so I would really encourage you, as you go back home, if you don't have an idea where to start, just start by joining a club within your country. Just join by asking, what in your own small way can you offer service? And little by little, you'll become part of the process of building a resilient city through service to your local communities. This is, I'm going to give a brief introduction about the power of collaboration. So I was able to know about Rotary because I was involved in a Commonwealth Women Mentorship Program, which was basically a group that was supposed to build our leadership capacity. But the idea is Rotary funded it, and that's why I am here. And so my idea and my takeaway is there's so much power in collaboration. As you go back here, take 1 or 2 contacts that are going to inspire you to collaborate, because you never know, maybe out of that collaboration, you're going to be part of creating a system and ensure there is so much trust. And I can tell you for sure, even within your siblings, if you don't have trust within yourself, nothing works in the family. That's just a basic idea. If you don't have trust in businesses, that's what creates profit. So you need to work on building friendship and trust between businesses. And So my smart city thought line would be, what is the place of human development and human capital in advancing resilient cities? And that is, how do we ensure we build a city that can allow people to earn income, and not just only income, but a decent income that they can be able to sleep and afford shelter and go to better schools and healthcare systems. And what is the place of partnership and collaboration with impactful organizations, and that means charity organizations. I mean, they are the ones who are in the local. So probably you might have an idea, but when you partner with them, how does it go on ahead? And the last one would be the place of design thinking. And we've been talking a lot about design thinking and co-creation. And for me, when I look about design thinking, it's creating a system within people on how to think. And there's a very interesting thing about sitting in the problem. And so when I look about smart cities and collaborations, we are encouraging people to sit in the problem, because two things happen when you sit in the problem. One, you either realize that you're trying to provide a solution for a problem that does not exist, or two, you're providing a solution for a problem that manifests in a different way. So you cannot build a resilient city if you don't do collaboration. So I would really encourage you. Collaboration allows you to sit in the problem. And so I would end by saying something quickly about the forward test of Rotary. Whatever you do, always remember, this is our value system that helps us to build trust. Is it the truth? Whatever you do, is it truthful to the society? Do you have data to prove it's true? Is it fair to all concerned? Does it breed fairness among the groups that you're collaborating and the people you're trying to create impact? Will it build a goodwill and better friendship within the society? And will it be beneficial to all people concerned? Thank you.
Thank you, Winnie. That was an excellent blueprint for thinking about solutions and challenges, too. I want to pick up on two terms that Winnie mentioned. One was this idea of sustainable trust, and trust keeps coming up today in the form of data, technology, etc. So that's a great idea to keep in mind. And the other was the term human capital, which you'll hear more about later today. Our next lightning talk, and the final one for this session, is from Alejandra Ospina, the founder and director of TRIBECO Sustainable Fashion. Alejandra specializes in helping sustainable fashion brands integrate and communicate sustainability strategies and policies along the production chain. With more than 7 years of experience working in human and social development in organizations such as the Organization of American States, Alejandra is passionate about finding real and efficient solutions to development through social entrepreneurship. In addition to her work as director of TRIBECO, Alejandra is the co-founder of the TRIBECO Foundation. Let's give her a round of applause.
Hello, everyone. I just want to make sure that back there everyone hears me. Yeah? Okay. So nice to meet you all. My name is Alejandra Ospina. I am the founder and creator of TRIBECO. I'm also a consultant on sustainable enterprises. TRIBECO, it's a impact enterprise that supports, promotes, and represents Latin American sustainable fashion brands in all Latin America. But before I dip into what we do and how we do it and what is our solution to the fashion industry impact, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what the fashion industry impact is, because I think it's important for us to kind of have a context. So the industry, the size of this industry is $3 billion USD, it's like $3 trillion. If it were an economy, if it were a country, it will be the 7th largest economy in the world in terms of GDP. So you can see that it's a huge industry. Here on the screen, you can see a little bit of a chart of how the supply chain of the industry works, and it's a very complex industry. And in this chart, you can only see one of the many supply chains that can happen. And in this case, let's say it's cotton, so you have the crops, and then you kind of cut them and process them, and that's different if you are working with polyester, which is a synthetic fiber. It changes if you are working with tencel, which is an artificial fabric, and that changed the whole supply chain. One of the things that I was more surprised when I started learning about sustainable fashion is that it's not only a complex industry, but it's also an industry that happens all around the world. So linked it and tracing what is happening in the whole supply chain is near to impossible. There are some initiatives such as blockchain that is trying to do the traceability, but it's really a hard quest to get, because it can happen. You can have the cotton being grown in Australia, and then the production happening in India, and then you have the transportation, and you have the retailing side. So it's a huge and complex industry. And then there is a phase of all the supply chain that is just being taken into account right now, and that's the post-consumer phase. A lot of the environmental impact that happens in the industry happens after they sell the products. And until now, the companies and governments and in general the industry were not thinking about what happened after these companies sell the piece, after they sell the clothes, what happened when we are taking care of it. And just to give you an example, when you are like washing and drying one polyester shirt, the energy that takes is 7 times the energy that it took to make the shirt in the first place. So just by taking a good care of your garments, you are saving a lot of energy in terms of the environmental impact of this industry. But also, and more going towards the topic of the summit, which is smart cities, I want to talk about waste. The industry accounts for 92 million tons of solid waste per year globally. The problem is that 40% of that waste comes from the design and production waste. So when they're designing the clothing, they are cutting the pattern to make a new piece. 40% of that leftover fabric just go to waste, and usually they just burn it or it just go to a landfill. So we need to rethink design. That's one of the main solutions that needs to be happening right now. We need more education towards that. To give you an example, this is the stadium of Toronto, Canada. And you can fill that stadium 3 times per year just out of clothing waste from Canada. And Canada is not even the most consuming country in the world. It's USA. So I don't know how many stadiums we can fill with the clothing waste coming out from the US, but I guess it's a lot of more stadiums than that. And actually, 85% of all the clothing that is produced goes to landfills. Only the 15% is being recycled, upcycled, or downcycled or donated. So that's another of the challenges that we have to address. And there is so many other challenges, as you can see here. We are talking about child labor, we are talking about women's rights, cultural appropriation, water pollution, plastic pollution, and all of them can be addressed by working in a better fashion industry. If we see it from the SDGs, all the SDGs that you see with a circle, a black circle, they are addressed and they are connected directly with the industry. So I'm sure you have heard of this term, and if you have heard, just say it out loud. The new trend is that we make more clothes, cheaper, low quality, and we go by trends. So every week you see a new collection out there. That means more clothing, more clothes, low quality, going to the landfill. More polyester clothes going to a landfill. And I'm sure you have heard of this, but it's fast fashion. And what is happening is that this has changed completely the fashion industry. In the past 15 years, the industry has doubled its production. And that means more waste. That means also more people being paid really under poor regulations and poor labor conditions, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So going back to fast fashion, we have talked about how complex is this industry and how it goes from growing the fiber to all the process towards retailing the piece. And then you may wonder, but how is it possible that with all these processes that is happening in many countries, a shirt can cost $5? The truth is that those $5, who is paying that clothes, you're paying just $5. But behind that, there is a whole industry that is paying that price. And the environment is paying the price, and the workers are paying the price as well. The industry accounts for more than 60 million workers around the world. The ILO states that 21 million people just within the fashion industry are victims of forced labor. That makes the fashion industry the industry with more forced labor happening within the production chain. Not only that, but 80% of the workers are women. So we are also I'm sorry, I'm mixing Spanish and English now. So we're talking here about 80% of the industry is women, so we're talking about women's rights, we're talking about labor rights, and we're also talking about regulations in general, just like policy making. What happened? Right now, at the pace that the industry is going, if the industry does not implement changes at a faster rate, it will not be able to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and it won't meet the Paris Agreement. The fashion industry, some of the big companies are part of the UN Impact Agreement, and some of their innovations and strategies that are taking the UN, but we need more changes. So we need disruptive and systemic changes. Also, from the side of the consumer, we cannot wait for the consumer to lead the movement. There is so many consumer education out there that I think is important. 75% of consumers think that sustainability is important, but only 7% of them buy thinking on sustainability first. So we cannot wait for that. So we need companies and stakeholders to make decisions at governmental and corporative levels, and that's why we're having these kind of dialogues in places such as the World Bank, because it's important that stakeholders make decisions on this topic. And now, going back to TRIBECO, I've talked already with many of you that have visited the booth in the marketplace. Thank you for coming there. And basically, our mission is to promote the creation of an ecosystem where an ethical and sustainable way to make fashion can exist and thrive. We do it through education, mentoring, awareness raising, and business opportunities. So we are trying to tackle some of the challenges that the industry has by pushing forward sustainable fashion in our region, in my region, which is Latin America. So we basically create a space where they can learn how to add more sustainable values to their supply chain. We also give them one-to-one mentoring and one-to-one consulting so that they can find strategies, business strategies that work for them and the values that they have. And we also give them opportunities, business opportunities, taking them to pop-up stores and other fairs and spaces. Wow. There is more presentation. That's all the. I'm missing some other images. No? Okay, it's okay. Basically, I wanted to share with you, and you can enter them to the website. We have a couple of values. We rank the brands by values because being 100% sustainable is just impossible. It's not possible. So we made a ranking of values, and we do an assessment with them. We kind of give them those little tags, and then we work with them so that they can add more values every season. So we work with them in specific projects and we help them get there. Other aspect that we work in is activism. So we are constantly working on being in these kind of spaces, talking about how important it is to have more dialogue around the industry. And as a conclusion, I just wanted to give you some advice from my personal perspective as an entrepreneur, because I know many of you are starting your own businesses if you don't have it already, and your own projects. And there are 3 things that have been key for my success. I'm here just gonna take 1 minute because my time is done. And there are 3 things that have been key for me. The first of them has been having a critical thinking mindset. So doing the homework, really, you have to become an expert on the topic that you're working with. I know it sounds obvious, but you cannot imagine how many projects you see out there that you are just copying and pasting information. So really have a critical thinking, really look for go for the source. Don't be scared of sending LinkedIn messages to the experts and finding out exactly what's behind that industry or that part of that you're trying to work with. The other part goes really linked to that, and it's transparency. That's an advice for any social enterprise. As much as you can, share your challenges, share your goals, share your process with your audience, because that's what is going to connect you in a personal way with them, and that's that's why you can make them part of your team, even if they are your clients. We've been only for 1 year working on this, and we already have 30 brands that believe in us, and I think that's been one of the keys of like achieving this. And the third one, and the speaker that was before me was mentioning it, is the power of collaboration. But when you're going to collaborate, think about first, what are your priorities? What are the values that are important for you in a collaboration? And then before going there and having that conversation, think about what you can offer to the other person and what that person can offer to you. So what you are going to ask for, because it has to be a win-win relationship. So that's all from my side. I'm happy to collaborate, as I said. Love collaboration, so feel free to come after and ask me some questions. Thank you.